Okay, everybody, I'm so excited about our guest today on the In Demand Hairstylist podcast. My good friend Amanda Koziel is with us, and we are going to be talking all things mindset. We're going to talk about professionalism and leadership. And one of the things that I'm really most excited about that we're going to talk about today is being business savvy, and we're going to be talking about sales. And I know so many stylists start to shrink back and get so fearful when they hear that word sales, but I think you guys will have a totally different perspective once Amanda kind of sheds light on what she feels sales really and truly means. But I will go ahead, Amanda, and let you introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are, what you do, what your brand is, and what you stand for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on. As Kristen said, my name is Amanda Koziel, and I am the founder of the VIP Woman. And basically what I do is, so I'm a leadership and success coach, and so I work specifically with small and medium-sized business owners, and just, women in business too that consider themselves a leader. And I really help them to learn how to embody what it means to really feel like a VIP woman from the inside out. And then also what it means to not only attract high quality clients, but also keep them. So that's really what I'm most passionate about. I love working with women that are in, like I said, in leadership roles or aspiring to be in leadership, because at the end of the day, I feel that every woman is born to lead no matter what role she may be in.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think, I was thinking about this right before I popped on with you, but I was just thinking, the VIP woman and the in-demand hairstylist, if they were real people, they would probably be BFFs.
They totally would be BFFs, kind of like us.
Exactly, because I feel like, all of those things that you just mentioned, like, the VIP woman, stepping into leadership, showing up as your best self, attracting those high paying clients, like that is exactly what the message is for the in-demand hairstylist. Like, who do you have to be in order to have an abundant and successful career behind the chair as a hairstylist? And I think so much of what you share with your community just aligns so much with what I'm sharing with mine. And so you just were the perfect person to have on the podcast.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. I'm honored.
Oh, for sure. So I want to dive into our conversation, and we're just going to let it roll. But one of the pillars of the in-demand hairstylist training that I do, one of the very first pillars is professionalism. And so in order to become that high-end stylist that attracts high-end clients and has an abundant life and career, financially, emotionally, all of those things, professionalism to me is one of the most important things. And to me, that really means just showing up as your best self. And I know that the VIP woman is just sort of this persona that is almost like an alter ego. And I think that that's almost how we have to show up every day. So can you share with everybody what the VIP woman is, like what she stands for, and how all of us have that inner VIP woman?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love what you said about being almost a persona, because that's where it really begins, and I know I'm going to actually give your listeners a link to my VIP Woman playbook. And so this is something that I really walk women through, not only in the playbook, but also my one-on-one coaching, just because it's all about a state of being before doing, and I feel like in any role or in business, it can be really easy to find ourselves focusing just on the doing, getting more clients or the hustle of the everyday. And it's sometimes easy to lose sight of how we're actually showing up, and are we actually showing up in alignment to that biggest, grandest version of who we really aspire to be, right? And I always tell people, and I think for even, women in the hairstyle industry and salon owners that, is there anybody that you just like, you see and you admire, and you see this woman or you see this person and you're just like in awe of that person? And the reason that I bring this up is not to like start talking about, who are gurus or anything like that, but the qualities that you admire in those women or those business leaders that you so admire actually already exists within you. And sometimes we just need that extra, coaching and the extra just like time to really pull that out and realize that it just starts from a conscious decision to actually show up in a different way. So, I mean, that can be as simple as, dressing the part, right? I mean, being in the hairstyle industry, it feels a lot different when you show up to work and if you feel like a schlep, or if I know you can't wear heels all the time because you're on your feet all the day, all day, but really like looking your best, and paying attention to how that changes your attitude, how that changes your energy, and then more importantly, then how that actually starts to change those around you, in your environment. It can be your colleagues, your coworkers, and then of course, most importantly, your interactions with your clients, So it just starts from that conscious decision to, you know what, I'm going to show up as that bold, badass, woman leader that is deep within. Maybe I don't quite feel like that today, but you know what? Let's look the part. Let's dress up. Let's just start to decide to show up, in a powerful way today.
Yeah, and that was actually shared with me, I think, by one of my coaches. Not, it might have been Jennifer. I've worked with Jennifer, but anyway, a coach that I had in the past is, I always felt like I was comparing myself if I looked up to somebody who was either better, quote unquote, than I was, or someone who I was inspired by or aspiring to be like. And then I kind of would feel like I was comparing myself. But she actually guided me and just shifted my perspective on that a bit and said, it's actually great to have those people who you aspire to be like, because like you mentioned, it's actually already within you. If you're attracted to that, or if you're attracted to that type of person, that's already within you and it's something that you want to be. So actually, I think having those people to look up to is great, even if it's something as simple as maybe like printing out a picture of that person and like putting it on your mirror to remind you every morning. Because life is crazy, it gets busy, we hit the snooze button one too many times, right? And we don't feel like actually getting up and getting ready, doing all those things. But I think sometimes when you have a reminder, like a picture or something of like, okay, yeah, I slept in, but how can I make myself look and feel better today? Maybe it's that pop of red lipstick. Maybe it's just throwing a couple curls or waves around your face, or maybe it's wearing like, jazzing up your outfit with some jewelry or something. There's little things like that that can totally change the way that you feel and the way that you show up. And I really love, especially what you said about what that brings out in you, like the energy that you give off once you look good, when you feel good, that energy definitely goes out into the world. And how amazing that you can actually up level the people who are around you too. So I love that piece, and I love that you shared that.
And those words are going to be, that image is going to be different for every woman. You know what I mean? So the VIP woman, it's not about telling somebody or telling a woman this is how you should be or how you shouldn't be. I know the other day we were joking around that, to one woman, an image that might really turn her on is, being in sexy lingerie and sipping champagne. And to another woman, it might be hopping on a motorcycle and getting a hot tattoo. You know what I mean? So it's not about letting somebody define that for you, but choosing what those qualities are and just making a conscious effort. So whether it is, maybe your 3 words are confident, inspiring, and, disciplined, for example, whatever words are just words that inspire you to step into another way of being, and just use those as kind of a guiding light. Like, check in with yourself with your 3 words. This is my definition of what it means to be in the fullest version of myself, and am I actually showing up like that today? So it's easier than people think sometimes, just to make those subtle shifts in the way that they view themselves. But what isn't subtle is when other people start to notice, and when other people start to notice, wow, like, Kristen she just has this like different energy about her today. I wonder what she's doing. I better ask her like what she has going on. And then of course, naturally with clients, I mean, who doesn't want to work with a confident, especially in the beauty industry? I mean, your clients are looking to you, as kind of like their fairy godmother for the day, right? And so the more confident you're showing up and the more excited you are to help your clients in the chair, I just feel like that's going to carry through as you build your business.
Yeah. And just to, to piggyback on this point, it's all about, I mean, I think the very most important thing is truly how you feel about yourself. But I always say this too, like the professionalism thing has so much to do with how we show up. And a big part of that being and choosing to be in the beauty industry means getting up, getting ready, and showing up with your hair and makeup done. And so I always use this example as like, if there's two stylists and they're both ridiculously talented and they both show up on time and they both, are in the salon, and somebody comes in and one of them is dressed to a T, stylish, whatever that style might be. If you're grunge, if you're grunge, if you're hipster, if you're hipster, if you're glam, you're glam, whatever. But showing up head to toe, like looking the part. And then you have another stylist who hair is in a messy bun, no makeup on, wrinkled clothes, and they're at the same level of skill. Who do you think that person is going to choose to go with? They're going to choose the stylist who's put together. And it's
Right.
really a shame because I see a lot of stylists who are incredibly talented, but they don't invest in themselves and they don't show up looking the part. And it really does hurt them in the long run. So if you want to attract those high paying clients and you want to keep those high paying clients, it really does require something of you. And that means you have to step up to the plate too.
Absolutely. And you touch on just the idea of leadership as well. It's leading yourself, because I know that there's a lot of women that might be in owner positions and things like that. And it really, whenever you want to influence others, it starts with yourself, so leading yourself first is the critical first part before you can ever expect to be an influential leader or an influential teammate. Is you have to feel that you're leading yourself first, right? So just as you were explaining that, that's just another important part of, really what the VIP woman is all about, is actually showing up as that leader that she's called to be. And what does a leader do? A leader inspires, a leader takes those along with them. A leader is not somebody that stands there and like it just expects all the glory, you know what I mean? But they inspire others through their actions. And so in the beauty industry, like we said, showing up, deciding to show up as that version first, and then letting that, embody the rest of the day and your interactions with people, it really does make a huge impact.
Mhm. Yeah, and speaking of leadership, I know that, you have owned businesses in the past, you've owned your own franchises, you've worked with corporate women, and so you have this different perspective about leadership. So can you touch on that a little bit, about just what leadership means to you, and yeah, and just that piece, like touch on leadership a little bit for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I think of the most effective leaders that, I personally worked with or that I've seen that have really made an impact on their teams and have grown them, it's the leaders that, they walk the talk themselves, right? So it's never the person that's just standing up there and telling people to do something that they've never done before. So I think that is a huge part of leadership, is actually being like genuine and credible in what you're doing, and then just checking your ego at the door, because I feel that leadership can be in all shapes and sizes. And as you know, one of my core beliefs is it doesn't matter what your title is. You can be a stay-at-home mom or the CEO of a company. You're still a leader, and you still are in a position where people are always watching, and people are always, you're always in this position where you can influence somebody else. It's just the difference between those that recognize it and decide to actually, move forward with it. But my point is you can really tell the difference with the quote unquote leaders, that we have in, whether it's in corporate America or in business scenarios, that are just in it because they want the attention or want, like, they're doing it because their ego. And those are never successful leaders. Those are the leaders that the staff, quits on them, and, they have employees that aren't committed to them and aren't tied into their vision. And so I feel like, a strong leader, I mean, when you have those two core things embedded into you, and then it's also the skill set of being able to paint that vision. So it doesn't matter if you're if you do own a salon, or even if you're in the beginning stages of being a stylist, like what is the vision of what you're trying to create every day when you walk into that salon? And do you have other people tied into that? And do you actually inspire others to rise up and meet you? Or, are you letting others drag you down? Right. So we all need somebody in life always to be the one that kind of sets the tone. And so those are the women that, have connected with this idea of owning their leadership,
Mhm.
because we all have it, but it's just not everybody decides to really connect with that and actually take it forward, in their daily life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one of my favorite topics, and we didn't even discuss this ahead of time, but since you mentioned it, I think the topic of ego is so important and so interesting. And we could probably talk about that for days. But can you explain just if anyone's, so when you're in the personal development world, been, both of us have been kind of studying personal development for quite some time. And I remember first learning about ego and being like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even realize some of the things that I was thinking and how that was actually holding me back.
Mhm.
So can you touch base a little bit? You said like kind of checking your ego at the door. What does that, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and when I think of this topic of ego, I mean there's two parts to it. It's the part that you're conscious of, and it's the part that you're not conscious of. And so the part that you are conscious of is what I'm talking about, is, when you find yourself day in, day out, are you doing something because you feel aligned with it and that you believe in it, or are you doing something because you think it's going to make you look good? And that's usually like what we're consciously aware of, and we can relate that to any area of our lives, both in business or in just personal life. And then there's this other side of ego that, is really the part where it's what I like to call the mean girl. The mean girl in your head, the mean girl that is always there, and we sometimes listen to a little bit too much. So it's the ego that tells you that you're not good enough, or that you don't have what it takes to succeed in business, or that you're not smart enough to run a salon, or you don't deserve to get the highest paid clients. So there's really two sides of it. It's the conscious and unconscious, but it's such a important part of, like you said, the personal development world. And for anybody that's a woman in business, really just understanding that and recognizing it, because we all have it. It's not like it's going to go away. I mean, I kind of like to think of the analogy of, your ego is, it's always, so if you're in a car, if you're driving a car, like your ego is always in the passenger seat, but you're always in the driver's seat. And sometimes I even like to say that it's best if you can actually put the ego in the back seat, so you can just like see it in your rear view mirror. But so that's what it really is. It's those voices that sometimes tell you that you should do something because you're just more worried about looking good, or sometimes it's telling you, you know what, like you're not good enough. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think too, I think that's what I run into a lot is I'm glad that you touched on that there's actually two sides of it. Because I think when I originally think of like ego, I think of like, oh, like an egotistical like maniac who just thinks they're amazing. But the other piece of ego is actually the part that protects you and like, you know what I mean? And there's that part that tells you like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? People are going to make fun of you. People are going to, oh my God, like, don't do that. And I think that I see that more often than like the egotistical maniac kind of person. And that can really, really sneak in. And just the analogy that you used of, it's okay for it to be there because it will be. It's always going to be there. That voice, those voices, but it's just like acknowledging that they're there and then just being like, okay, cool, like I get why you're here, ego, but you have to sit in the back seat.
did you
I'm
ever read The Untethered Soul? That was one of the books that Jennifer had recommended.
yes, I did read that.
I've been meaning to reread it because it's been years. So, but I know that was for those out there that are looking to dive more into this topic, The Untethered Soul by, is it Eckhart Tolle?
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, it's a super fascinating, not the easiest read. I would maybe recommend getting it on Audible, but because it's a
It's
little,
not great. I think I have it on Audible. It was still hard on Audible. It's definitely one of those books I think that you do need to read a couple of times.
yeah.
But I'll put the information in the show notes for that because it really is. If you're somebody that's struggling with self-confidence, if you're somebody that's struggling with I think that's how it was most helpful for me, is somebody that was struggling with just confidence, and it really explains your personality and like how it's broken up into like your ego and who you truly are, and it really is pretty deep. But if this is an area that interests you, and you're wanting to learn more and dive into that, I'll put the information in the show notes so you guys can definitely look into that. But thanks for sharing that. I
Absolutely.
love that topic of ego because, man, it can hold you back big time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge.
So let's talk about, this is what I want to mostly dive into because this is something for me, even 13 years as a business owner, 16 years as a hairstylist, this is something that I have to be honest has been a weakness for me throughout the years. And I know it is a huge weakness for a lot of hairstylists. It's something they get scared of, and that is sales. And what I love about you is just how bold and unapologetic you are about sales. And it's sort of like you're that person who I'm like, I want to be like that, and I want to have a little bit more of what she has. So I would like to just hear um, your perspective on sales and what that means to you, and how that ties in with being a VIP woman, and especially how it really ties in with our industry.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, sales is definitely, it's a topic and an area that I'm so passionate about just because I've been in the sales arena for over a decade, and so I really understand like the mindset that people go through when they struggle with this idea of feeling like they need to sell a product or a service, and I just always feel like it's an interesting like when people say I don't want to be salesy or I don't want to come off as a salesperson. And I'm always like, well, isn't that an interesting statement? Like just that statement, I don't want to be a salesperson. Like, what does that even mean? I mean, what is your definition of a salesperson? I mean, because it's all in your perception of what a salesperson is. Like nothing in that statement means anything bad. So it's really, it's just the interpretation that we've given to the word sales. And there does happen to, which I still don't, I just think it's just interesting that this word sales has people feel so uncomfortable. I mean, it's nothing about the word sales is negative. So
Yeah.
really it's the way that I view, sales is it's truly a service. And anytime I've had any product across all my different roles across the years, and even what I do today, it's really embodying this idea that, when you're quote unquote selling, you're actually just sharing information and you're solving a problem. So, I mean, especially in like the beauty industry, I mean, women are coming to you as the expert. So, I mean, that's the other token is in any sort of like environment, especially in like behind the chair, I mean, that hairstylist is in the position of authority already. Like they are already positioned as the authority and the expert. Like a customer is coming to you to provide a service because they don't have the knowledge, don't have the capability to do it themselves. So like that's the first part that I think so many people miss about sales is when they're with a client, like that client is already interested in what they have to offer. So like that's the first mindset that like people have to understand is that that client is coming to you because they expect you to give them a quality service and a quality experience to solve their problem. You know what I mean? And so when you're relating it to like at a tangible level, what stylists do, after the because I'm sure you mean like sometimes is it with products that they get nervous about or like upselling like additional services?
Well, both. In our salon, and I know a lot of salons are like this. I mean, at the end of the day, we are passionate, right? We love what we do. We see ourselves as creative. We see this as our art form, and we genuinely, it is that thing that like, even if we didn't get paid, we would do it. But at the end of the day, this is our career and this is what we are doing to make money. And if we ever want to live an abundant life so that we can serve other people and serve our families and serve ourselves, we can't be afraid of money. We can't be afraid of sales. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I see stylists run into are two things. Yes, product. So they might use a product and the client's like, oh, that smells amazing and that stuff. But then when they get up to check them out, they're afraid to actually be like, did you want to get that product, or did you want to like take that home with you or whatever? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like they get stopped at that point because there's some sort of block. The other thing that I see is that, like what you're mentioning, is when they're sitting in your chair, they're already there wanting the service that you provide, your expertise, but they get afraid to recommend additional products for them. So for example, Amanda, if you would come in and you were just scheduled for a haircut, but once you came in, I noticed that maybe your hair was feeling a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
They get afraid to recommend a conditioning treatment or a shine treatment, or maybe like a toner to like cut out the brassiness, because I think the hurdle is that, or what the perception is, oh, like they might not have the money to do that, or they're going to think that I'm pushy, or that I'm just greedy and trying to like get extra money in my so, and I'm not going to speak for all stylists, but I can tell you
Sure.
in our industry it's a problem. And so it's just that recommendation. People are afraid to make those recommendations because they pretty much are controlling or assuming what they know their client can afford, or how
Right.
they're going to perceive them. So
Well,
that's really
it
the
goes
issue.
back to, yeah, I mean, and it just goes back to like owning your expertise, right? I mean, if they're coming to you, like for any service, they're coming to you because they expect you to give a quality service. You're solving a problem while you're there. But then if there's any sort of, like you said, there's that scenario where, you notice that they need this product or that product, it's actually a disservice to not recommend that to that client. You know what I mean? Because, and you could even play it out and say, if I don't at least point this out and bring this up as something that would improve this client's, at home care, or would improve the experience, like the next time that they come in here, if they're using this product consistently, like they could even affect the client not coming back. You know what I mean? Like it's really just holistically looking at anything you're offering, that you're selling to a client, is you're providing a service and you're providing a solution, and it's actually your responsibility, and not like not like a requirement because you're trying to hit a sales goal, but it's actually your responsibility to share that information. I mean, people don't just like know this stuff that aren't in the industry.
Right.
Like that's why if you're in that position, is to actually convey that information that's valuable to them, and then they can ultimately make the choice of whether they want to get it or not. But it is your responsibility to share why it's important, how it could benefit them, how it could solve their problem. And then ultimately it's the client's decision, whether they want to do it or not. That's in their wheelhouse. But to not share, I think that people just really need to understand and embody that it's actually a disservice, to your clients.
No, I love that. I think that's really the biggest shift. Like what you just shared is the perspective, the mindset shift that needs to happen when you're talking about these things. I love that you said that it's actually a disservice. Like somebody could actually leave you because they're looking for somebody to tell them what to use, what to do. They don't know these things. So wouldn't that be sad if they left for another stylist who's selling them all the things because you just wouldn't? So it's really interesting.
And it relates directly back to ego, because you can't get over your own, story in your head about what you think it's going to mean to that client. Like, don't make the decision for the client. And that's my motto in sales. Like, it's our responsibility to tell them, but don't assume, that the client's answer, or that that they're going to choose not to buy it. Like, that's not our role. Like, our role is not to assume, it's to provide, it's to educate, and it's to inspire them to, potentially buy something that can make their life easier or solve a problem, so.
Do you have anything that you work through with women who have struggled with sales, that any like tips, tricks, tactics to kind of like kick that voice or shift? Do you have anything that you can share around that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I just shared actually in my private Facebook community was, but it's an exercise that very simple to do, but just sit down and make a list of 25 reasons why your product and your service and your products and expertise is of high service and high value to your clients. And starting with that to remind yourself like what you actually provide at a core level to these clients is always a great place to start, because it reminds you and reconnects you to really what you're doing, so you don't get so caught up in, oh, I have to like sell this product, you know what I mean? You reconnect to that you're there to solve problems, and you're there to actually provide solutions for people, and make their lives more enjoyable, more better, making women feel more beautiful, more comfortable in their own skin. And when you come from that place, it's a lot easier to make recommendations and to offer solutions when you know that you're doing it from the right place.
Yeah.
Because it's just easy. If we're not connected to that in sales, it doesn't matter what you're selling. And if you're just, too wrapped up in like, because you think you should be doing it, or, oh my gosh, that other stylist is so good at selling products, like you're just not going to come off as authentic. You're just not going to come off as real. So just reconnect to why what you do, as a stylist or as a salon owner is of high value and high service to your clients. And remind yourself of that. That's really the first step. And sales after that becomes a lot more enjoyable, because you actually feel like you're making a difference and you're not just trying to push a product to push a product.
Mhm. You can tell you're such a city girl because you're so focused, and those sirens they didn't even phase you. Like, oh my God.
I feel so bad. It's like I just saw, literally, and I think another one's about to race by, but like can see these lights racing by, and oh girl, you have no idea. Like my mom and I joke around all the time. Like there's so many things that I'm desensitized to that's not even funny. So yeah, I feel bad for your listeners, but yeah, it's the life of a
So
Chicago
funny.
city girl.
Yeah. So yeah, for those of you that are listening, Amanda lives in like literally downtown Chicago. So there you have it.
I think it's done now. I think it's done. Oh my gosh.
Yes, the sales thing, so good. The shift of perspective is so important, and I think that could be literally a game changer. And I think what you just shared is huge too. I think if you just really sit down and think about, okay, the service that you offer and how that's solving a problem for your clients, and if anything at all, and this is just coming to me, I feel like this time during the quarantine, when we're recording this, we're still in quarantine, COVID-19, and this time has been really, really eye-opening because you actually see how important our job is as hairstylists. People are like bootlegging haircuts right now. Like people cannot wait to get their hair done. Like, haircuts, hair color, extensions. You and I were just talking before this, like you had an appointment set up to get extensions done and you had to hold off and wait. Now you can't do it until the end of June. And it's like, it's something that you really want to get done for you, for your confidence, for everything. And I think this time, if you've learned anything during this time, I think it's to realize like how important what we do is and how valued we are, and to stop, like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but like disvaluing, is that a word? Like let's not undervalue what we do, but let's actually start looking at it as incredibly valuable, because it actually is. And I feel like this time has showed us that. And so that exercise that you just mentioned would be a great thing to do before everyone gets back in the salon. Like, what are the things that you offer? How is this making your client feel? What problem is it solving for them? And I think always for me, it's like having that heart space of thinking about how is it going to make someone feel when they have this done. And when you can connect to that, I think you can totally like throw sales out the door, and it just comes from that authentic place that you were talking about.
Absolutely. And it's what I like to call selling with soul. I mean, that's really like the
That.
most beautiful way to sell anything, and yeah, the beauty industry is a huge important part of women's lives. You know what I mean? So like you said, definitely no pun intended, but don't sell yourself short on what you provide and, really what you create for women every day.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And that was super helpful. I'm glad we ended with that because that is just going to be, that's like the punch that we all needed to just sort of like get back and get back into the salons with confidence and power and not be afraid to just really get back in charge. Because that's the other thing that we're going to run into is people are going to think, oh my gosh, my clients have been out of work. I feel bad charging. Like, we're going to run into that. So again, you have to remember the ego piece, that like that's just your ego being like, afraid. Just kick it to the back, and think about the value that you offer. So Amanda, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and just your like eloquent way of just communicating all of that. It's always a pleasure. If people want to learn more about the VIP Woman and the different things that you offer, where are the best places that they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm easiest to find on Instagram. So my handle is the VIP Woman, and that's WOMAN. And also my website, thevipwoman.com. And then I would love for anybody that's listening to join my private Facebook community, which is where I go into depth with all these different things we've been talking about today. And so much more for, it's business and leadership tips for today's modern woman. And that is the VIP Woman Collective.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being here. I will leave all of your information in the show notes. So if you love the content today and you want to learn more about Amanda and the VIP Woman, just scroll down in the show notes, check out her website, check her out on Instagram, give her a follow. And Amanda, once again, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, ladies.